The Civil War continued for 2 more bloody years. Lincoln was criticized by political opponents, newspapers, military leaders, abolitionists, and even members of his own party. Some believed that he was not strong enough to win the war. Others believed that he had already used too much presidential power. At the same time, Lincoln supported the proposed 13th Amendment, which would abolish slavery throughout the United States. The Emancipation Proclamation had changed the direction of the war, but only a constitutional amendment could permanently abolish slavery across the entire country. Meanwhile, Union forces gradually gained the advantage. Lincoln had endured military failures, public anger, and an intensely divided presidential election. Now victory was approaching. But victory created a new question. How could a country divided by 4 years of war ever be rebuilt? On April 9, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered his main army to Union General Ulysses S. Grant. For millions of Americans, the surrender signaled that the war was finally nearing its end. Washington erupted in celebration. After 4 years of bloodshed, the Union had survived. Lincoln could have demanded revenge against the defeated South. Instead, he began thinking about reconciliation. He wanted the Southern states to return to the Union, and he hoped to rebuild the country without creating an endless cycle of punishment. But victory created a dangerous illusion. The main Confederate army had surrendered. The hatred created by 4 years of war had not disappeared. And in Washington, one man believed that Lincoln had destroyed the country he wanted to protect. On the evening of April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln and his wife, Mary, attended a performance at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. The play was a comedy called Our American Cousin. The audience laughed while Lincoln watched from a private box above the stage. After years of war, he was finally experiencing a brief moment of relief. But actor and Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth had planned an attack. Booth entered the president's theater box. At approximately 10:15 p.m., he shot Lincoln from behind. Booth then jumped onto the stage and escaped from the theater. Lincoln never regained consciousness. He was carried to a boarding house across the street, where doctors remained with him throughout the night. At 7:22 on the morning of April 15, 1865, Abraham Lincoln died. He was 56 years old and became the first American president to be assassinated. Lincoln had lived long enough to see the Union preserved, but he would never have the opportunity to lead the country through the peace that followed. Lincoln did not rise because his path was easy. He rose because every stage of his life developed an ability that he would need for the next one. Poverty taught him endurance. Self-education gave him language and reasoning. Failure taught him how to improve. The law taught him how to argue and persuade. Political division forced him to define what the Union truly meant. War forced him to make decisions whose consequences would reach far beyond his own lifetime. Lincoln's rise was not the result of one heroic moment. It was the result of adaptation after adaptation.